Welcome to the B2B Content Show, a podcast about the how, what, and why of B2B content marketing. I'm Jeremy Shear, and my guest is Angella Nguyen, VP of Marketing at Nice Healthcare. Hey, Angela, great to have you on the show.
Thank you so much, Jeremy. It's wonderful to be here. Seriously.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being here. Really appreciate your time. Start by telling us a little bit about the company, about Nice.
Sure. So Nice Healthcare is an integrated healthcare solution, right? And we take a whole body approach from primary care to lab, x-rays, prescriptions, um, all the way to physical therapy and mental health. Like we really think about the 360 kind of view of the person. And what makes us different is like we take a preventative approach. It's not like we're just only addressing things there after the fact, before problems get really aggravated downstream. And we do that with a blend of in person and digital care. So it does, kind of work out in that like we can address a lot of things immediately via tech, via like a virtual appointment. But the things that do need an in-person approach, like we can do that as well. Um, but beyond the sort of like, typical elevator pitch, if you will, like the foundation of NICE is like what knowing what we know now about what the healthcare experience is, what it looks like, what we've all been through. If we had to hit the reset button and start from scratch, like right now, what would it look like? And NICE Healthcare is basically the closest thing that you would look like knowing what you know now. And so we've like, really taken like a very mindful approach of all of the pain points from accessibility, from affordability, from convenience, and tried to solve for that. And I think we've done that very gracefully.
Okay, very cool. Um, and now, before we dive into our topic, tell us about a memorable marketing moment from your career.
Um, the only and I say this like I mean, of course, I know you want to hear about the breadth of my experience, and I'm not only here as an agent of NICE, but the most memorable one I can think of because I think just timing wise is we pulled off something really incredible recently. We have a partnership with the Vikings, the Minnesota Vikings.
Mm,
And we had this, it was sort of like months in the making, this mental health panel and event that we did with the Vikings and had these really crazy, heavy industry heavyweights in the digital healthcare field, particularly within the respect of the specialty of mental health and even a football, like a linebacker from Minnesota Vikings. And we brought this kind of perspective, like four different perspectives together, had an incredible moderator, and basically, with our audience was showing them how to level up their benefits bench, showing them like if you invest in your employees, because we are a B2B business and we do cater to employers and their employees if you invest in them in with respect to their healthcare, mental health, physical therapy, like just the whole person, and don't point solution it out, if you will, then you start to see benefits and the almost the not the loyalty, but just the willingness and like the want to stay. And yeah, that was a huge feat. Is one of the I mean, I was telling you offline before here, like I'm going to wedding planning right now. I felt like I was planning my wedding. Like it was so grand, right? And, I almost I was really stressed out and bringing that together and to life, was emotional for me because seeing the access that we just saw lots of light bulb moments come from the audience, come like, "Oh, yeah," like and that to me is like when I will have done my job, when I see physically on someone's face that there's a light bulb moment, because of the work that we've done. And so I think timing wise, that's probably the one that comes to mind right now, as like one of my memorable and career highlights, if you will, with respect to the work I've done in marketing.
hmm Wow, thanks for sharing that. Yeah, that sounds really cool to see it firsthand, see a human reaction. In a digital world, we don't always get that.
Yes. Oh, yeah, it was actually like it was a real life of, people flew in for the
Hmm
training and to, kind of ask that of people, especially after, the time of COVID and whatnot, like,
Yep.
it sort of much even more meaningful in a way, like, for them to show up for us, and really kind of meant a lot that we were worth the travel.
hmm Very cool. Thank you for sharing that. Now our topic today is building brand trust. and getting people to change their minds, sort of making change. So, um, how, first, let's just start with building brand trust. What does that mean to you, and why is it important?
I think that these days, with access to marketing and at your fingertips, like anyone can technically market themselves or market a product or market a brand. Like you just digitally, like via Instagram, like you can build something from nothing. And so, getting it's a great thing because the access to the barrier is a little bit lower. However, it makes it a little more confusing for the consumer of, like, who to trust, right? Like, because now if they're, like, bombarded with choices, and, like, even as simple as finding something that like a physical product, like a shoe or whatever. But then it never comes because that brand isn't real. Like it just has the stock imagery and it has like the right look of a brand, but doesn't have like the carry through. And so building a brand that people can trust from start to finish is actually, I think, even more harder now than it was before because the access is easier and this market's just flooded. Um, and one, having the good documented lived in mission, um, to a company's North Star is like what be it the founder, be it the mission, something needs to be the North Star to kind of guide what the brand, is in execution, right? And in real
Yeah.
life, and pulling that audience in and making them feel safe, making them feel like they're, investing their time not out of, um not in vain. Like, that is one of the biggest, I think, hurdles that we have as barrier number 1.
Okay. So that's interesting. So you mentioned, having a mission that really is kind of at the center of your brand, or that kind of what your brand is about. Like why? It
The why.
addresses that why. Why does the
Mhm.
company exist? Why are you people doing this at all? Right?
Yeah.
Why did the founder start the company?
Yeah.
Um, and so how? So in your case, how did you take that why, that mission, and infuse it into your marketing, into the content, and into the outreach you do. So, it's not just words on a website, it actually comes through in every interaction. How do you do that?
Sure, and I'd like to kind of preface this with, like, some, I get background, if you will, and the
Sure.
reason why I am so mission driven and but not blindly mission driven. I'll get to that in a little bit. So I come from a fashion background, right? So I worked
Mhm.
in this industry for many, many years, like about a decade or so. And when I made a very conscious decision to leave because it started to feel a bit empty, and I think I had almost like an existential crisis, if you will, at like, what am I doing to like better anything, the world, whatever it may be. Like I wasn't trying to get too lofty, but just starting with small steps, like I'm like, how am I even adding value? Um, and so I started to kind of pivot to just impact technology, is impact mission driven things, blah, blah, blah. I found myself in electric vehicle land, right? So I work for Tesla and Canoe, and that is something that I'm very proud of, like just impact and the mission to better the world in this sustainable way, blah, blah, blah. Um, and I could have easily stayed in that. It's by kind of chance and coincidence that I co-founded a healthcare company myself back in the day while I was in school. And it was about accessibility and convenience to care. And again, very pure coincidence. I met my co-founder in an icebreaker in a classroom, and we decided to just kind of go for it. And we kept winning money, and we kept pitching and winning more pitches. And we're I think we're onto something. And then cut to today, and I was actually really quite burnt out from healthcare, and I didn't think I'd ever go back. But Nice drew me in specifically because of the co-founding team and specifically because of Thompson. And so, although I've been in, from an area where, and this has nothing to do with like my ex bosses. I had wonderful ex bosses and ex leadership in fashion, but from like let's say no impact, no quote mission, ricochet all the way to the other spectrum, impact and mission only, right? And then didn't even care who the leader was. Like, yes, it happened to be Elon, but like, I mean, I truly was just sort of like, I just want to value. I don't care who leads me. That this is what
Mhm.
is most important to me. Ricochet back to like, I want both. I want a great mission and I want a great leader. And I'm going to be selfish about it. And I'm going to wait out until I find that perfect mix. And I believe Nice Healthcare has that perfect mix. The co founding team are, I mean, how do I say this? But like just gentle souls who like want to do good and wants to do well. And if you even look at Thompson's like sorry, my kings.
That's
if you
okay.
even look at, one of his credos, it's like the problem with healthcare is the price. Okay, so he's attacking the problem in a way that's with respect to price, and then he's got like Allison and Genevieve, his other co-founders are bringing in this sort of convenience, the accessibility, like, I mean, they all have this perspective about, like, what healthcare should look like, and I think really came from a drawing board perspective. That North Star to me is I feel like it's a luxury that I get in my career. I feel it's a luxury I get to choose to wait for a company like this to work for.
Mm, hmm. So, a lot of interesting stuff there to unpack. So, one thing that says to me is that as we were talking about mission before, I mean, that's going to come from the leadership group.
Yeah. Mhm.
And again, for kind of like what was their impulse to start this company? What are they trying to accomplish overall? And so the leadership is super important in that way. And it sounds like you found a really good place where you have both of those things that you were looking for, right? The strong leadership mixed with a strong mission.
Yeah.
Um, and it sounds like a good place to work in that way. And so, and how does that now, your role, of course, is in marketing.
Mhm.
And so part of your job, right, is to help communicate all that to the outside world.
Yep.
But you can't just keep, repeating like the mission statement over and over, right? Like you have to do all kinds of messaging and stuff like that. And I would think the challenge for any marketer is to create all kinds of different content, but the through line always kind of comes back to that mission, right? Like
Mhm.
here's why we're bothering to do all this. Here's what we believe, right? So how and there are all kinds of different ways to do that. Like what's been your approach? What seems to work best for nice healthcare?
So what's interesting and it's sort of a double-edged sword is the digital healthcare space is increasingly getting more crowded. Now, some people are like, "Oh gosh, competition." And for me, I embrace competition in that, like, we're trying to do a thing. We're trying to like really change behaviors and show momentum, et cetera. So like other players in the field means it's an indicator, right? That we are on to something slash
Yep.
we're like leading the charge and things and people are following suit. If you really take a look at the digital healthcare landscape in general, most of them, their approach is to these very metropolis cities, if you will, like really like sexy cities, right? So like New York and LA. I live in LA. I don't think I'll ever get a chance to be a nice healthcare patient, unfortunately, but that's my reality, right? And like Miami, whatever. Just think of like just thriving metropolis cities where like you say, oh yeah, like I live in this luxury high rise and I've got concierge medicine, things to like, everything's at my fingertips. Our approach one, we are a Minnesota-based company, right? And so we do really cater it started from there, came and then we started to surround to our kind of neighboring states within the Midwest. When we say accessibility, yes, of course, we mean convenience and accessibility to, Joe Schmo and like living in a luxury high rise, but we really are also talking about, a farmer in Idaho who, may have different access to care than other communities, if you will. And so, that I think is a special approach that we kind of take that's not the same as every other sort of person who's doing this. We pay attention to the flyover state. We pay attention to the territories that other competitors may not necessarily they may overlook because for whether it's reasons for splash or whatnot. But like, and even when I'm guilty of that myself. Like I've mainly lived
Mhm,
in those types of cities. And when I co-founded my company before, I was thinking about me, myself, the patient, and what that looked like. And I
mhm,
wasn't thinking outside so much. And now I'm actually Nice Healthcare is thinking about the messaging of and the approach to these multitudes of territories, whether it's like language barriers, closed captioning, whether it's like how we even take a digital approach with them, or do we go back to paper and billboard? Like what does reaching them look like? And
mhm.
so that is one of the challenges that we face as a very, relatively small marketing team. Um, that not everyone is, I mean, quite honestly, our patient, audience is not all us. It is people that you may
Sure.
not even necessarily think about in terms of your traditional, you know, archetype, like customer profile when you kind of do that, middle-aged man, tech giant, like I've we've made those decks before, and I know every marketer knows what I'm talking about, where you like just throw the demographics and psychographics together, and it's always like some Silicon Valley startup guy, it's always some, lawyer or whatever it may be, but or some but like those archetypes are not, like on paper, are not all that we look at.
Mhm. Right, so you need to get beyond the archetypes
Yeah.
and really get to know, well, who are these people that we're trying to reach and help?
Yeah.
Uh, and now and for you guys, it's both, or correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's both like the actual patients that will benefit ultimately, but it's
Mhm.
also your customers, right? The companies that you're connect with and enable to offer this kind of healthcare. So it's not just one audience, but multiple.
We've got quite a few audiences, and I think that sometimes,
Mhm.
particularly a B2B business framework, that sometimes get lost. Like, you don't think about the end customers so much because you're thinking about the sale. And then, in the sale and the end customer could be there's like a Venn diagram, if you will. Like, yes, they could
Yeah.
be the end user themselves, but it's not, oh, like they are not they're not only the end users. So like we really are I think getting better at segmenting on our audiences, curating different types of content for them, curating different ways to which channels are best to use for which audiences, et cetera. And it's only getting more sophisticated as we learn more.
Mhm. Right. Well, certainly the more you know about those various audiences and
Yeah.
and what really motivates them, right? What really drives them, then the
Yeah.
better you're gonna be at delivering content that's gonna connect. So what would be your advice to marketing teams that kind of have a similar approach to you? And they say we have a really strong mission and we want to communicate that in a variety of ways to our audience or audiences. What's the sort of the single most important thing that teams like that need to concentrate on?
I think seeing a lived in version, or like what success looks like, or what a successful interaction or experience, lived in, if you will, is probably the most powerful approach. Before, CEOs and founders, like, they were so far away from the problem themselves. They were businessmen, businesswomen.
Mhm.
They identified a problem, saw a gap in the marketplace, found a solution, but they themselves may not have been the ideal audience, right? They might have just seen a gap or a business opportunity. I think if you're a founder or trying to do a thing with your business, if that mission, if that solution is very personal to you, your family, your community, or whatnot, that makes it all the more powerful because it feels lived in. And you see that, like, okay, this is not just a arbitrage or like a power play of trying to get profits. We have some alignment, and we are, in however different we may be, there is some realm where we are the same. And if I can associate my problem to your problem, then that's sort of half the battle.
Yeah, right. In some ways, it all comes down to just having empathy. right?
Yes.
With your understanding how other people think and feel, you can
One of
you can
our
achieve that.
yeah, one of our company kind of tenants is like that empathy, that high EQ. And it goes internally and also externally. Like that's something we kind of built into our DNA is um the empathy component, the high
Hmm.
EQ component. Yeah.
Yeah, so important when your business really relies on relationships, right? And
Mhm.
going back to what we first talked about, building trust. And I
Yes.
think it's impossible to do that without understanding how other people how other people think and what trust means to them. What will motivate them to trust you. You have to understand that.
Yeah, it's really crazy because people are so savvy these days that you can get funding and sort of dupe a lot of people with just a really nice PowerPoint presentation. Like a great speaker and a PowerPoint presentation goes a long way these days. And there's without proof of concept, without data, without an actual product market fit, and it's
Right.
scary. It's really scary how far you can kind of take a ride.
Right. At least for a while.
Yeah, at least
Right. But your point, you
it becomes
can.
and then it becomes a Hulu documentary, but, for but, it's crazy how, people are just so looking I think it has died down, but there was a point where people were just so had FOMO for the next big thing, and they were just
Mhm.
throwing caution to the wind to just, "All right, you say that person's gonna be the next Uber, like, I'm in, like, count me in, like, before it's too late." And I think they're getting a little more wise about that, but, um in the marketplace, you'll see, everyone's trying to get their hustle.
Yep, for sure. Well, Andrew, there's so much more we could talk about on that score, but I don't want to keep you, especially because listeners, I have to let you know. Angela mentioned this earlier in the interview that Angela, I hope you don't mind me,
Oh, it's fine.
but Angela's engaged to be married in about a month. And in fact, she was doing this interview from her bachelorette party, taking time out of her special weekend with her friends to do this interview. So thank you so much.
Words.
Really, I can't thank you enough. Thanks for your time.
This was awesome, Jeremy. Thank you so much. I had a great time, and, any other questions, feel free to pass my way.
Okay. Well, you're about to have an even better time on your bachelorette party. So, congratulations on getting married. And thank you again. Really great conversation. Really enjoyed.
Thank you. Can I mention our socials or mention where to find us?
Yeah, absolutely.
Sure. So, of course, I'm VP of marketing at Nice Healthcare. Go to nice.healthcare for more information if we serve your area. And, on all the socials, it's Nice Healthcare, whether there might be an underscore here and there, but basically Nice Healthcare on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, etc., and LinkedIn. Most
Okay.
LinkedIn.
Okay. Very good. And we'll put that information in our show notes as well.
Awesome.
Okay. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Jeremy.